Okay, so this is the fourth typing video. So today is February 13th, so I guess I've been doing these now for close to a month. I was motivated to do this fourth edition for a couple of reasons. With all the recent dramas I've had, using tidal waves and whatever, I'm at a point now where a lot of that is close to being fully processed and moving on, so I am in a different headspace. But more importantly, Benjamin's group interviews, or interviews with the group, I should say, they've been very interesting, fascinating, and they've given me some insights I didn't necessarily have before. In particular, Kimberly, who outside OP is an ENTJ and Moving OP is an INTP. Her interview, I saw quite a few similarities, and it made me question with my typing result incoming whether that could be a possibility amongst all the other options. So what I've done is I've essentially re-looked at the questions and I've drafted out some responses. I'm trying to keep this relatively short, hopefully it's less than 15 minutes, so let's see where we go. What is your average day, week like? So what I wrote was, no change to what I've said before. Essentially we've got a flexible structure. And the reason why, which I haven't highlighted before, why I thought it was important to implement in the first place was because when we were kind of doing things ad hoc or at the beck and call of the kids, when there were moments of free time, there was nothing I wanted to do. Mainly because I just knew I wouldn't have the free time to finish it. And so for me, it was like, well, I can only get halfway. I'm just not going to even bother. And so that just kept this self-fulfilling prophecy of dead time coming in, nothing to do, frustration. So at least with a block of time, I can start thinking about what I could do and come to terms with, well, if I don't finish it, it's better than nothing. Okay, tell us about one of the most stressful times in your life. Now, I've written a little bit here. And that's because before I unfairly condensed stress into things that prevent me from sleeping at night. And I've realised that even though that's extremely valid, there's a lot of smaller things that I didn't consider and they really have impact on my mood. And to say that they're not stress, I think is rubbish. And a lot of this has really come about from me having to deal with some of the events in the past 2 weeks. I'm going to call them vices or addictions that I've just had to walk away from. And yeah, it has been stressful. So what I've written here is, so an example of stressful times is in the build-up to something important. The examples I have in the past is things like important job interviews or presenting material to a large group of new people that I need to that are important to leave a good impression on. I get all those classic stress signs like sweaty palms in the build-up. And what I've then written is it's odd because in those situations I tend to ruminate through several ways of how I can deliver the material. I go through different approaches, I think about jokes and I consider how people are going to react. But the funny thing is, all that prep work, once I'm in the moment, I actually throw it away and I just do what comes naturally. I don't like to say I winged it because the way I see it once again is as a structure of dot points, and so like or if you treat it like having palm cards, you know, I know that if as long as I hit those, it doesn't matter the overall process. I just need to deliver those core intents. So I think, why do I ruminate then? I guess it's I guess it's more so I've got some idea of how to deal with tricky situations potentially. Yeah, it's definitely not to have confidence on the talk. I guess I'm aware of my difficulty with sleep energy, and that's my way of dealing with it. I don't even know if that makes sense. Okay, so in general, my stress is related to, so what I've said here, in general terms, stress is usually related to being hamstrung. So money, time, and what I didn't acknowledge clearly in the past videos, but actually it's completely relevant, is people. So people normally bother me if they're hamstringing me from doing what needs to get done, but I can also get really stressed about people if I don't like them, in the sense of I find it really easy to be welcoming to people I meet for the first time, but once I've got an impression of them, if I don't like them, I can find it very hard to not be transparent about it. I think a lot of that's got to do with, once I don't like them, I start reading their motives and intentions as negative towards me, and if that's not the case, and then I can be cold. So something I've got to work on. I thought I've actually put a lot of work into it, but all these recent dramas I've had is related to that, and I've realised I've been sucked into old habits. And the other form of stress, which I didn't acknowledge in the last video, at least I don't recall if I did, is related to self-reflection. I really find it hard to give myself time to sit down and process how the day went. And listening to all these sleep dominant or sleep saviour people, these Benjamin interviews, has really highlighted that to me. It's not something I look forward to, and I guess in my own speak, in another video I alluded to hating double checking, and for me, like sitting through and processing how the day went just doesn't make any sense to me. I will only do it, or I only tend to do it if something hasn't gone to plan, got what I wanted. Then I'll review what I could have done differently next time. Yeah, what's odd is if I try and sit down and think about those things, my head just goes crazy. It does not want to do it. I do get very stressed, unease. I can even get headaches, and my mind just wants to float around meaninglessly. It's not even thinking about anything useful, just maybe random shit I consumed this day. You know, like even today it happened, and I was just thinking of some beats to a song. Sometimes conversations I've had with someone, no relevance. It's just I'd rather be doing that than processing that information. So what are some problems you see in the world? I said I'm not going to change my response. It's really been my focus, and I think the reason it hasn't been my focus is because I look at the world as outside my range of impact, at least for now. So it's just not something I concern myself with. Tell us about one. I'm also lucky. I live in Australia, which is a first world country. I don't have a life to complain about. So once again, out of sight, out of mind. Tell us about one of the best times of your life. So again, I don't think I did this justice before. So firstly, I do agree with what I said before, that looking back loosely, I kind of need to see sustained happiness to call it best times of my life. So that's what I was referring to before, harmony at work, harmony at home. However, reflecting on this further, especially through these interviews and my own dramas, I realised that there's actually a lot of one-off moments in my life where I feel over the moon and extremely happy. Are they enough to call best time? I don't know, but I thought it was relevant to talk about because those moments, everything just feels euphoric. Usually, well, pretty much always actually, it's tied down to overcoming something seemingly impossible, some sort of hurdle or challenge, and effectively making good on something I choose to value highly. What I find though is that the high from that is quite short-lived. Woohoo, I've done that, I feel great, but I don't feel any need to celebrate. I normally just use that as motivation to carry on doing what I'm doing. It's a positive confirmation, and I can safely say that aspect of making good on something I value is something I've come across in both professional and personal life. So I thought it was relevant to update. What's the biggest challenge in your life right now? So once again, no change. My focus and biggest challenges on myself. So as a slight addendum to what I wrote before, I've recently come across this term ikigai, or it's a Japanese saying for essentially meaning of life. And I'm using it to help me define a direction that I'm motivated to pursue. And I find it really challenging. It's really hard for me just to write down off the cuff what I enjoy doing. And unless I've proven myself in the real world, it's also really hard for me to say what I'm good at. So yeah, right now I'm really finding it a big challenge. Like even just do 5 minutes a day of it, it's just fucking hard. So I do my little tidbits, and at the moment, what I found it's easy for me to do is jot down what I don't like, kind of like a process of elimination. Then ideally, what I'd like is to find some sort of website that gives me like 10 to 15 buzzwords for each of the different sections. I can use that and as a trigger and go, oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, that makes sense to me, and then try and identify it for myself. Okay, what would your ideal life look like 10 years from now? Well, aside from what I said in the previous videos about being in a better life position, effectively what I want, I'm just going to read this word for word, is I want to be in control of my life, do things not because I'm following social norms, but this idea of ikigai, which combines passion, mission, profession, and vacation, is very appealing to me. So it comes down to balancing my needs of others, and having sufficient security to allow freedom to explore. Even though I've never been that security conscious, since before I had a family, I had trust in my own value to get to the top of the pile. I guess with the family, there's a lot more other things, you know. If I'm not employed, what happens with the house, blah blah blah. So even though I don't find security bogs me down, because I am in a comfortable situation, I'd be foolish to not recognise that there is an element of ball and chain. And then I put here, I would be disappointed if I was so self-absorbed in work that I didn't have the time or patience to coach, encourage, and provoke my kids through what would be truly formative years for their development. I don't know, I talk about my kids so much. It is really important to me. When I was growing up, my dad used to always say he would have done a good job if I turned out better than him. Now, his definition of better might not be the same as me, but it is something that I want to strive towards. So for me, I think better is relating to encouraging them to be wise, see the world openly, be more conscious of their decision making, just general awareness about insecurities, demons, those type of things. I don't want to tell them what to do, but I want to give them the confidence to find their own path as well. Maybe this is me projecting the challenges I've had in mind. Essentially, I guess I'll have a crack at what type they are. I think my daughter is an ENFP and my son's an ESTP. At this point, even though they're so young, and maybe I'll tailor it more towards what their struggles and demons will be. Well, not maybe I will. Okay. Just as a little addendum, I wanted to talk a little bit about the OP typing template. Just some additional information. I'm not trying to. When I wrote this out and looked at it, I was like, oh, okay, this is very TEFI. But it wasn't intentional. This is just the things that came to my mind. So Saviour's responsible. I feel responsible for the overall outcome. I feel it's always on me. I guess if the ship falls, I go down with it. What am I confident in? I'm confident jumping into a situation and figuring out a way. I've pretty much proven with that. Obvious. To me, what's obvious is the way things link together. I just get frustrated when I just go, you just got to do this, you got to do that, and then somebody wants the full explanation, step by step. It's like, fucking hell, just do it. tidal waves. So I've put here, based on the definition on the spreadsheet, which was I'm not responsible, someone else is. It's actually quite hard for me because I feel I do feel I'm responsible for most things in my life. So what I've actually put here is I have tidal waves about self-reflection and internal processing. Like I said, and I'll have an example a bit later on in regards to sleep, but there's a resource that can give me prompts. I'd gladly take it. So I think those are my tidal waves. Fear and pain, definitely. I think the biggest one would be commitment of other people. I think that leads to a lot of poor decision making from my end, and then becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason I didn't say tidal waves for commitment of other people is because I feel that I am responsible for that, because I'm interpreting that behaviour, so it's my choice on how I interpret it. That's why I didn't put it as a tidal wave, because the definition in the sheet is I'm not responsible. Peacocking. I'm not entirely sure if this is what it is, but it's definitely what's on my mind at the moment. So for me, it's about dealing with large groups. I definitely find it easier to be social in smaller groups, say 2, 3, 4 people, where I can. It's much easier for me to dominate unchallenged and control the flow. Once we get in big groups of like 5+, I just don't enjoy it as much. I find the information share is too fragmented. It's not necessarily control, but I don't know who I want to listen to. So dealing with large groups, I can do it superficially, but never over a prolonged period of time. That's been my whole life. So I'm envious of others who've got that skill to work within a big group to politically promote themselves favourably and influence people to do things on their behalf. I really actually do struggle with that. But I think I do come across that. I think a lot of people that I've met recently find it surprising. I'm not comfortable in those situations, so that's why I'm saying might be peacocking about it. Animals. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about animals. So sleep. I'm just going to read it out word for word what I wrote. I have not reviewed this. Sorry. I definitely struggle to internalize information. Now, what I'm about to say, I personally can't see or identify with, but quite a few people that have worked close with me have said this, so it's very relevant. So these people that worked with me closely have said, once I get involved with something, I tend to research it in and out and become extremely intimate in that knowledge, to the extent where they say I over-research it, short of being a perfectionist, which I hate being associated with, by the way. I really don't feel I'm a perfectionist. I think when I start to research things in depth, it's because I keep seeing for me, it's about I only want to do things once, which is odd. I don't even know if that's true. Like, a lot of times I say that I need to do things 3 times. The first time, it's like literally I get it to 80%. There's a couple fuck-ups. Most of the time they're not that critical, but if they are, then the second time will be the lessons learned, and then the third time, pretty much I'll get what I want every time, the outcome I'm desiring. So what I've put here is my easiest experience with what I perceive to be some form of sleep play bust example is I used to play this forum game called Mafia, and in simple terms, you've got a group of, say, 13 people on an online forum typing, and they're split into good guys, bad guys, and the objective of the game is the good guys have to outnumber the bad games and vice versa. The challenge is the bad guys all know who they are, so they can work together, and the good guys don't know who anybody is, so they're completely blind. And so the goal of the game is, you've got cycles, maybe they're 48 hours. So in that cycle, everyone can talk freely, openly, and then you have to vote somebody off. It's all public discussion, nothing in private. And I really I got a lot of stimulation out of this game at the time when I was quite bored. And if I was going to assess what my game was like in general terms, it would be normally to provoke conversation and trying to lead ventures based on information others presented. I didn't have a problem blasting or superficially blasting information, but it was always full of logic gaps that people would call me out on, and it would actually negatively impact my reputation within that game. I found it really, really hard to take a step back and read things, process it, come to my own conclusions. I just always wanted to go off my gut feeling or sentiment. I've read this, it's got to be this, it's got to be this. Geez, I'm hoping this is not demon NI. And then if there was no activity, I'd become stressed because I knew I needed more information to have this more concrete, consolidated concept of direction. But it was too hard for me to do that, so I'd just spam the thread, instead of taking a step back. And I knew what I was doing, I couldn't stop myself. I had this stupid expectation that if I threw out more shit, somebody would bite onto something and develop it for me. If anything, just put them off read and everything, of course, because it's spam. So I've recognised this definitely from seeing that. And I just wanted to add in, I think it's impacted my decision-making process for my recent business ventures, in the sense of I have full confidence I can get the ball rolling when I'm committed to all the elements of what it takes to start a business. But I know I've been very fearful about starting. I don't have trust in whether the overall concept is sound, and so instead of forcing myself to review the direction, it was just easier for me to get a partner in. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I've recognised before even this OP stuff that's been a weakness of mine, the internal processing of information, and just try and run away from it. Okay, so consume. I would describe my consumption as very on-off. When it's on, I really struggle to turn it off, to stop it, and I'll just keep consuming information till my head hurts. Literally, I'll get a headache, and then I'll just leave it alone for a while. And sometime in the future, I'll go back into it. So I find it hard to consume anything I don't have a current need for, or a potential future use for, or if it's helping me resolve something that didn't work out well in the past. So unless it's got some sort of tangible benefit, I'm just not interested in reading it. I think again that's why I don't really know too much about world problems, because I just don't find it useful information to bother with. So just as a general note, I'm not sure if relevant, my YouTube subscription list is quite diverse, but I tend to cycle through flavours of the month. I did something similar with topology. I'll go in hardcore into a system at a time, overdo it, back off for a while, and then re-dip. The trick was probably that I was bored, ran out of something to do. Okay, so one thing about blast, I'm not sure if this is blast energy or not, but I'll say it. If I'm in a new situation, new people, I've got no problem just throwing out stuff or having a direction. Probably the easiest example of new situation, new people is in uni. I was typically elected as project leads. Even though I'd never go to class or anything, I'd be meeting a bunch of people for the first time, didn't even know what the assignments were about, and I'd be elected in that position. I know first impressions, people often find me as very confident and knowledgeable and don't have a problem talking about the subject matter. I don't really see it that way. I see myself as having very superficial knowledge, and I'm actually looking to try and find people that can poke holes, and that then prompts me to reconsider my position and develop a deeper learning. But the reason I wanted to highlight this whole last thing is because if I'm in a new situation with people that are already existing or incumbents, so this is mainly professionally, I tend to sit back and observe. And I'm raising it because essentially this quite often is define social hierarchies in this time that takes me to say, okay, I've seen enough, I'll act in this way or take this approach. And those social hierarchies, once established, I've actually found it very hard to overcome, unless it's a crisis, and then I get an opportunity to step up, and the people are like, oh shit, you didn't know that you could do these things. It's actually happened quite a few times now. I haven't learned how to be more assertive in an established environment to date. The other thing I'll say is if in an established environment where I'm new, sometimes I have ruffled feathers, but it's always been unintentional, and usually it's by excitement. I'll say something that's a bit unfiltered and good intention, but it's not received well, and I'm guessing that's play energy. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, and I'm sorry if this video overran a little bit, is modalities. So my thoughts are that I'm female sensory. I have a strong belief and trust in my conclusions on situations, and usually I don't care for all the facts, which is pretty much I don't care for all the facts. I hear it. Like I said, I'm a big believer of 80-20 rule. However, this is where I'm not sure about things, because the facts that I choose to use, I can be very headstrong about, and extremely headstrong. But I've been around enough times now to see that my conclusions are wrong a lot. They also right a lot, but in the end, if the goal is to be right most of the time, I have to accept that I can't blatantly follow my gut instincts. So I definitely, in the past couple of years, have worked on more naturally questioning the integrity of the data that I'm using as my inputs. The other thing where I get a bit of confusion is after watching the Modalities Q&A video, when it comes down to identifying timelines, I'm quite assertive that an event occurred, but I struggle to recall when. I can think about it and go, okay, plausibly it had to happen in this region of time, and then from there I can kind of drill down a bit further and go, okay, yep, and say, all right, makes sense it happened here, and then I build around it. But even things like birthdays and stuff, like to work out how old I am, I always have to go with what my birth. I know the birth years of everyone, and then I go, okay, that's how old you are. I don't know if that's relevant. When it comes to decider and identity, I think I'm masculine DA. Again, I'm not entirely sure, so I'd say FM. The reason I'm saying masculine DA is how I view myself personally is I've got this big facade, and I'm very insecure and movable on the inside. I guess you could think like a lion with a small shadow instead of having a mouse with a big shadow. The reason I'm not sure though is because when my morals are in breach, I come out quite ferociously, and I won't budge on that identity. But in general, I think I do sacrifice a lot. Maybe that's been movable in the TA, but the goals are that important, I'm willing to budge until I'm in breach of my values. I strongly have believed for pretty much my whole life that I'm responsible for my own destiny and what happens to me. And this is an interesting note, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but quite a few people I met recently have told me without me prompting that I'm not a bad person. I guess we've been talking about something, and I guess I'm saying that I felt responsible for how something went down, and like, no, it's not your fault, blah blah blah. I guess I should I guess that's an example of lacking sleep. I can't even remember. I need to review the conversation to see why I was listening in the first place. But alright, that's in the video for an extra 30 minutes. Thanks, bye.